Good night, good night, good night, my faithful viewers. Boss Lady Live tonight became too human. I fell asleep. Can you imagine? Where am I? Okay, let me wait a few minutes for my faithful viewers to come on. Tonight, our friends, we have two of the most hardworking persons in
Not
Jamaica.
hearing you.
You're not hearing me, Doc? You're not hearing me at all? Are you hearing me now? Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you well, very well.
Doc, unmute your, you see where you have mute? Hearing me?
I'm not hearing. Not hearing.
Unmute. Let me call you. Unmute. Doc?
Sandra, I'm not hearing anything,
Unmute. You see down the bottom, you see where you have that mute, like a little
Yeah,
phone?
I've on mute. When I
I am hearing you clearly. I am hearing you clearly. Clearly.
all right, you're still hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
I'm just not hearing you at all.
All right, come out and come back in.
Come out and enter back. Yeah.
Yeah, come out and enter back.
And you got very low. So I'm going to do the same thing right now to Sandra.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
My friends, I must apologize. It is now 8:31. Sandra fell asleep. Boss Lady Live fell asleep. Can you imagine? I was exhausted. I've been on the road all day today. Oh my goodness. When I jumped up and saw the time, I was beside myself. My sincere apologies. My sincerest apologies. That's not to take away from this evening. You know, you're hearing me now?
I'm hearing you very well.
Lovely. We're waiting on Doc to come back.
Yes.
Let us wait until he comes back. Yes. That is not to take away anything from this evening. I am only human. It's human to err.
All the
So
time.
my apologies, my sincerest apologies. But I know you have all been waiting with bated breath to have this conversation on parenting through separation and divorce. We're just waiting a few minutes for Dr. Barry Davidson to come in. We have with us this evening attorney at law, Annaliesa Lindsay.
Yes.
You are a divorce attorney. Well, she'll tell you a little bit more about herself and exactly what she does because, all right, see Doc here now?
I'm using my phone.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I've decided to use the phone instead of desktop.
Okay, it's perfect. So I'm hearing you clearly and you are hearing me clearly now.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Doc, I must apologize. Annaliesa, I must apologize. I fell asleep, people. Can you imagine? And I was looking so forward for this topic. So before we waste any more time, let me just apologize again because my viewers are coming in one by one. Just let me apologize once again for this late start. We should have been there from 8 o'clock, but nevertheless, we push on because this is life, eh? So parenting through separation and divorce. I'm telling you, in the last, I would say, a few months or so, I've been speaking to persons who are going through this very challenging issue, both male and female. because persons, it's very difficult. People take it personal. The children are involved. The children are involved. 1 second. I'm on now. Yes, I'm on. I'm on. We're on now. Yes. The children are involved, and it is a challenging period for all. We
Yes.
want to just take a few minutes to introduce our guests. They will introduce themselves. They will give us a minute or so telling you just about what they do on a daily basis, and how and why they have chosen this profession. Annaliesa will speak with you. Beauty before. Age before, not age before beauty this time, Doc. So we'll
That's all
start with
right.
you, Annaliesa.
All right, so I'm an attorney at law and I do practice in several areas except criminal law. I do divorces and I do prenup agreements as well. And I help persons through the process of mediation. I don't conduct them, but I help them through that process. I became an attorney because, quite frankly, when I was younger, people just always used to comment on the fact that I couldn't shut up. I was always defending the indefensible, and
Yes.
therefore it seemed like a natural fit. And I must say that I enjoy it.
Wonderful.
Family law, though, is very challenging because it involves so much emotions and so many varied people. So it is a challenge, but it can be rewarding.
Awesome. Doc?
I'm Dr. Barry Davidson. I'm CEO for Family Life Ministries. I'm a family psychologist. I did my master's in clinical, but after doing that, I recognized that there were so many issues dealing with families. Quite often you help an individual, but afterwards you realize that that individual needs family support. And sometimes the individual is a symptom of a dysfunctional or sick family. So unless
Oh,
you treat the family, you might never be able to help the individual. And so after completing my master's, I decided to make a switch and went into family psychology and did major research in marriage and family therapy in particular, developed
wow.
the finest premarital counseling program that's used in the Caribbean right now, and also the program that is used to teach counselors at UWI to do premarital counseling. So I was fortunate to be able to develop that program. I've worked a lot
Awesome.
with couples who are having problems, recognize that quite often divorce is an exchange of pain. It's an
Mm,
exchange, sometimes the pain that you experience after might be less or it might be greater. We're not sure, but it's really an exchange of pain. And children are the ones who quite often suffer a lot in this exchange.
Doc, you're also an author. So tell us a little bit about the books you have written.
I've written several books. The latest one is Answers to Questions Parents Ask. It's a book on parenting, uh,
Mhm.
developing, looking at parenting in the Caribbean from birth to about age 18. And one of the persons who endorsed this book for us was Malcolm Gladwell. And Malcolm Gladwell said some wonderful things about the book. And as you know, he's one of the finest authors in North America. This book has done very, very well. Victoria Jubilee bought about 2,000 copies to give to young parents. And so it's a book I strongly recommend. Professor Maureen Sams Vaughan wrote the foreword for it, and it's available in most bookstores.
Okay.
So
Can
this
they
is
find it
the book we
online?
have on
Because
parenting.
remember, our viewers are international. So can they
Yeah,
find it
it's gonna
online?
be it's also will be online by next month, by August. It should be online.
Okay. All right. So, Doc, let us start with you. All right. Although we're talking about parenting through separation and divorce, let us start with what are parents really required to do in the very beginning? That let us on a normal circumstances.
All right.
What are the duties of parents? Because I think that's where it starts. We don't understand what our duty as parents are. So let us start there.
Some years ago, a major research was done at Harvard University. They wanted to find out what is it that will help to raise children who will be emotionally and mentally healthy. And they found 5 very crucial things. One is love. That children need to feel loved by both parents. They need to feel loved by mom and dad. And also, what is crucial is that children need to see their parents loving each other. Because when that's not happening, it impacts on the children. It causes tremendous insecurity for them. They're not sure who to side with, whose side to take, and quite often it really causes problems for them. And so they found out that in families where parents are constantly fighting, it is far better to have one stable parent than to have both of them constantly fighting before the children. And so love was crucial. The second thing they found that was very, very important was discipline. And there are 3 formulas to discipline that I would like to just expand on. The first formula goes like this. Firmness, you're very firm with your children, like in Jamaica, we are strict and so on. But if you don't have a healthy relationship with those children while being so firm, the children end up becoming very rebellious. And we see this playing out quite often with pastors' children. We see it playing out with police officers' children. They're very strict, they're very firm, teachers sometimes. But if they don't make the time to build relationship, then the children end up becoming rebellious. And the rebellion can be one of 2 ways. It can be internal, where the child internalizes a lot and become extremely depressed or neurotic. Or it can be expressive, where the child expresses and get into all kinds of problems in school and elsewhere. The second formula goes like this. Relationship minus firmness leads to spoiling. So you have the greatest of relationship with your children, but there are no boundaries, there are no firmness, there's no right and wrong that they're going, there's no discipline. Then you end up spoiling those children, and they believe that they can, or that everything is supposed to come to them. They have a mentality that's really impacting negatively on the family and certainly on them later on in life. So the formula in which we try to help parents to work at is one in which you have a healthy relationship, but there's boundaries, firmness. So you have relationship plus firmness leads to responsible behavior, because the goal of parenting is to really produce responsible human beings. Because what we need to be able to do is to give our children roots and then give them wings and allow them to fly one day, and we can be comfortable that they're responsible and they will do a good job in flying. The third thing they found that was crucial was a sense in which both parents need to be on the same page. That parents need to recognize that there need to be some consistency. So consistency in terms of how you relate to your children. You shouldn't treat one better than the other, but consistency in parenting. So mommy and daddy needs to present a united front. So if mommy disagree with daddy, that needs to be worked out between them. But what the children need to receive, what they get from the parent, is a united position. And so even in cases where parents are divorced or separated, the parents need to be able to put away their weapons that they have at each other. And there are certain weapons that parents have, which we probably can talk about later on. They need to put away their weapons and be able to focus on the children and be united. So if the child is spending weekends with one parent, they need to make sure that what the child experiences with the parent during the week is what they're likely to experience with the parent on a weekend. So the child doesn't feel that going to daddy or going to mommy is much better than staying with daddy or mommy. They need to try their best to maintain some consistency. The fourth thing they found that was crucial was example. That children learn far more from observation than what you are telling them. There's a concept in psychology called introject. Introject is where a youngster will internalize a lot of the values and behaviors of the parent, and that might completely be different from what the parents been teaching. For instance, a guy will experience maternal introject, where he has internalized a lot of the values and behaviors of his father. His father was abusive. He, although never did like when his father was being so abusive to his mom, end up becoming abusive when he becomes an adult because he observed that so often. A mother was very docile and submissive and weak, and her daughter might experience maternal introject and allow people to take advantage of her later on, although she never did like that. And so the aspect of example is crucial, very crucial. And the final thing they found that was important was authority. Who is in charge? And so in the case of separation, for instance, where a child is children spending weekend with one parent and during the week with another, the parent in charge is the parent where the child is. The child is where the child is staying at that point in time. So the child can't say, at daddy's house, this is what we do. The person who has the children, that parent is in charge. And so somebody can't tell that parent what to do. You can't, the parent that is really taking care of the child is the one who ought to be in charge of the children. So those are the 5 crucial things they found, very, very important. And those are the things that we believe are crucial in parenting today as we work with kids.
So, Doc, you have really set up this conversation to go south, because in a divorce, to manage the love, the discipline, the consistency, the example, and the who is in charge is like a mess.
Very
Isn't that
difficult.
so?
Extremely difficult.
I
So,
have an
Annaliesa,
addition.
yes, step in right here, Alyssa.
So
Annaliesa.
I like all 5 points highlighted by Dr. Davidson, and I think that they're all very crucial. And while he was speaking, I could readily think of a lot of examples that I have come in contact with that will fall into all of those categories, whether in a good way or a bad way. However, at the base of all of those things, I think what we always forget is open and honest communication between the parties, between the parents themselves and between the parents and the children. When it is that we set up the dividing and conquering and so on, and you encourage secrets, you encourage my way and don't tell and so on, you have a breakdown in communication that allows for all of the negatives that come from those 5 points to persist and grow and develop in a negative way. So open and honest communication, which a lot of the times will be very hard, because when parents initially separate and initially say they want to get a divorce, inevitably you're going to have one or the 2 parties being so emotionally damaged by that decision that they can't get past their emotions to say, okay, let us have this conversation. But the open and honest communication is always key, and something that you have to sometimes force the parties to do. I know Dr. Davidson would probably say that even in his counseling, apart from having different sessions with each of the individuals, whether the parents or the children, There has to be a forum where everybody comes together and they are able to speak whatever their truth is so that everybody will hear and understand and listen openly so that the communication, as I said, can be open and honest amongst all the parties.
That's very, very important. In fact,
hold, hold, take a minute. Hold on 1 minute, Doc. Before Annaliesa goes any further,
Yes.
let us just take, all right, because we're talking about divorce now. So let us
Yes.
just take now the marriage. So
Yes.
in a marriage, right, you get into a marriage. You deal with divorce. So into a marriage, you get into a marriage now. You have certain constructs that are, I would say, best in a marriage. Can you just,
Yes.
in order for equity, so can we just talk a little bit about the things we don't do or should
Yes.
do in a marriage before we get to a separation and a divorce, before we get deeper into the meat of the matter? So I also wanted to set up that framework because I
Yes.
think some persons miss their responsibility at the beginning so that when the end comes, it's pandemonium and chaos.
Well, you see, the problem with that, is what are the driving factors at the beginning? Some
Right.
people are just in over love, which is probably not really love. They are in lust. They are in very like. They like different things about the person, but the person is not necessarily a true fit for them. There are some women who believe that they have to get married before a certain age or they will be old maids. There are certain men who have to show their virility or their manhood, so they get married after they find somebody who fits the rubric of the right companion, whether that is really a right companion for them or not. So you have to look at the factors that drive the couple in coming together in the first place. There are some people who believe that if it is that there is a pregnancy prior to even a consideration of a marriage, that the best way forward is to then commit to a marriage, although neither of the parties can see eye to eye on nearly every life lesson that they want. They're not developing in the same way. They don't have the same goals or ambitions. They are just really not, for want of a better phrase, equally yoked. And
Right.
so they get into a situation where at the end of the day they realize, "Oh, what this me do? Who this me marry? Who am I here with?" And so again, I have to come back to my open and honest communication, because if that is always there, it may avoid couples getting married, it may avoid couples having children, and inevitably that will avoid any question of a divorce or separation. However, once the cart has gone through the gate, again, we have to deal with reality. And is a hard, cold fact. And sometimes a lot of persons shy away from having this conversation with each other because they have already gotten themselves in a situation. And some people believe that they should just, okay, I'm here. Let me ride it out. Let me see what happens. Good, bad, or in between. I'm here. Traditionally, you have older relatives who may say, look here, it's going to look bad if you divorce. Just stick with it. Just stay with him. Just stay with her. No bother
Puff
with
up
that.
yourself and go
And
through. Push
that
through.
is the point. Just push through. You're not the first person who is going through this. You will not be the last. You're not going to die as a result of it. So just stay. So you have all of these other outside influences as well, that you need that quiet time so that you can be honest, first of all, with yourself, and then second of all, with your partner.
Boy, and I have always said I don't believe in bad marriages. I believe in poor selections, which is exactly what you're saying. Because there was not much thought put
Let's talk
into it.
about the
Go ahead, Doc.
one of the what is I appreciate all that Annaliesa said, but I'd like to step back a little before we get to even the marriage. One of the
Yes.
weaknesses that we have had is the poor premarital counseling that takes place.
If any at
Premarital
all.
counseling,
If any at all, yes.
Premarital counseling is crucial. You know, the premarital counseling that I have developed and I've been using, we have had 40% of the people who enter into premarital counseling never end up getting married. They break up during premarital counseling. Of the 60% that we have worked with, we have had an 80% success rate and a 20% failure rate. And let me share with you what happens. Before people get married, whether they recognize it or not, they're wearing a mask. So you have a male mask that's relating to a female mask. After they get married, they begin to realize that the mask has come off because they're now dealing with the real people. And the real male says, I didn't bargain for you, I bargained for the female mask. And the real female says, I didn't bargain for you either, I bargained for the male mask. And so what they find is that their relationship becomes extremely stressful because they didn't know each other. Because the truth is, during courtship and dating, people put the best foot forward. They're in the business of impressing one another. And so what we do in premarital counseling is we unmask people. We often call premarital counseling is different from other counseling. It is where we make comfortable people uncomfortable. And quite often in this uncomfortableness, you find people deciding that they're not going to make it through. Let me give you an example that I can speak of because I've gotten permission. I worked with a couple once where the man was 50 years old. He was recently became a church person. The woman was 30. She had grown up in the church all her life. The man had just been in the church for 1 year. So 49 years of his life, he wasn't. In the premarital counseling questionnaire, which consists, by the way, of 99 questions, covering about 12 different areas, there was a question, how many children do you have? And the man indicated none. The lady also said none, but I couldn't believe that a Jamaican man, 50 years old, had none. So I looked at him and I said to him, have you told her about the 5 children you have? He says, no, son, of 5 or 3. But the man had put none. And so right away, she realized dealing with somebody who is deceptive. And so we focus on deception and realize that there's a whole lot of other deception taking place with this particular man. And so there's serious unmasking that has to take place in a premarital. The other thing that happens in premarital is that we prepare people to navigate through the 5 stages of marriage. The first stage of a marriage is the honeymoon stage, and that's what most people look forward to. The second stage of marriage is the adjustment stage, and people have to learn to adjust. They have to adjust to snoring. They have to adjust to the fact that this person who always smelled nice when he visited you and took you out don't like to bathe. Those adjustments. So after this adjustment stage comes the reality stage. And the reality stage is that, hey, guess what? Love doesn't pay a bill. Love doesn't pay the supermarket.
Absolutely not.
You know, so you have to recognize the adjustment stage calls for all of these stuff. In terms of when you have children, babies are not dollies that you just put down and they stay still until you pick them up again. And so after this adjustment stage comes the conflict stage, but all of that has been building up all along. It's just that it is now really at a place to take major crash. Then after the conflict stage comes the stress stage. There are 2 responses to stress, fight or flight. And so we have to help people to know how to navigate these stages. We have to help them, teach them how to communicate, because there are 5 levels to communication. The first level of communication is what is called the cliche level. Or you find what's happening, nothing. And if a couple is relating to each other at the cliche level, then there is no intimacy, no bonding taking place, no transparency. The second level of communication is fact or gossip. So if all you speak about is other people, or you can talk about about sports or about politics, there is no intimacy or bonding taking place. The third level of communication is the opinion level. That's where now you're sharing your minds, and that's where intimacy and bonding begins. The fourth level is the feeling stage, where you share your feelings towards each other. And the fifth level is the transparency, where you're open and honest with each other. And so we have to teach people to really master these 5 levels of communication and get to that fifth transparency level before we can, before they can
Doc,
talk about I.
but Doc, you are, I mean, oh God, you are talking about men, most of whom, from you say, can we talk about it? Come up. So
That's right.
who are you going to have this conversation with?
Well, this is a
Because
problem that most men are stuck at.
Say that they hear quarrel. That's all they hear.
Most men are stuck at level 2. So we have to teach them. We have to re-socialize them. We have to train them. And so you don't enter the marriage because you.
Where? Who is coming for this assistance, Doc? How many men?
Well, when a man is seriously in love with somebody and him know that him can't get any further unless we go through this program, we find that quite often reluctantly, mad and upset with the counselor, cuss off the counselor, but that's what we have to do. And that's why we have the 40% breakup, the 40% disappearance.
Yeah. But the issue with that though, Doc, is who makes it a condition for those men to even go to counseling, because some women may say this is what I want, and at that stage that is when the men will flee, no matter how in love or convicted they are in what they want to achieve.
A big thing is self-esteem. We have to make our women realize that they're lovable, they're valuable, they're capable, and they're of worth, and they're adorable, and make men realize that, because that's when a woman feels this way about herself and knows this about herself, she's not prepared to put up with rubbish.
Agreed.
But Doc, can I interject here? Because we have to lay the groundwork first before we move on. Yeah. I am of the very strong opinion, based on my interaction with men, and I've always said it. I've said it publicly. My exposure and my experience with talking to I would say quite a few hundreds of men, I find that there is some level of insecurity on their part, even although they appear, quote unquote, secure. And so based on that insecurity, their choices are also made on those levels of insecurity. They choose someone not necessarily who suit them, but someone who they feel will be
fit the bill.
Right, fit the bill, and will stick with them through thick and thin.
Yes.
So them loyal, right?
Yes.
Their view of what loyalty looks like. Right?
Yes.
So no matter what them do, no matter how much children them go to the street go have, no matter how them treat them bad, no matter whatever, they are going to stay. So let us just talk a little bit about that level of insecurity too, because the bad choosing is not only on our side, it is also on their side based on their levels of insecurity.
Sandra, on that same point, it is the men's insecurity coupled also with the woman's insecurity, because she also believes that this is her catch. This is my one chance. This is my knight in shining armor, although he's not on a horse. And that is also part of the problem. You're dealing with 2 levels of insecurity.
So it's two broken people coming together to try and make a whole, when it's really 2 whole people, and then now these 2 broken people are not going to raise these whole children.
Right.
Yes.
Let me say this to you. Finding the right person begins with being the right person.
Sure. There you go. Absolutely.
I love that.
Right? We have found that healthy people attracts healthy people. Dysfunctional people attracts dysfunctional people. And that's
Absolutely.
why it is so important to help individuals to be wholesome. Because marriage is maths, you know. Marriage is multiplication. One
Yes, Doc,
plus
but
one
I
times one
stick up
equal
in, Doc.
one. So if
Stick
you
up
have
in, Doc.
half, if you multiply half with half, what you get? You get a
Yes, Doc,
quarter.
but here
You
what
get
happened
worse
now.
than what you get worse than what you
Yes,
are.
but Doc,
Yes.
hold on a minute. Stick a pin. Let us drill down on that because it is difficult. Because I'm a product of a divorce. It is difficult when you have to look on yourself, you know, and say, did I participate in that? Did I attract this to myself? But I thought I was whole, but I did a lot of work on myself. How did I get here? So that is that, there is that element as well, because we may think, because I had to come to the realization that where I was at that time, I was misfix it. I just want to fix. And that's where I was, and I have to accept that. So what I am taking, I don't want nobody whole, because anybody whole, in my estimation, don't need me. That's where I was. And so
So that's a problem, Sandra.
no, but I had
You-
to accept that though, Doc.
yeah,
How
yeah.
many people are willing to accept their participation, because to turn the mirror on ourselves is
Very
not
hard.
easy.
Very, very
And
hard.
that's true. And unfortunately, we grew up in a society where women are the ones that are always fixing it. Most of us, we come from families where our mothers were
Yeah.
the person who really kept this family together. And so many of us grew up looking to women to be the fixers. And so a
That's
woman
right.
has to get to a place in her life where she says, hey, marriage is not about giving, about getting rather. It's about giving. And so I need to make sure that I'm getting involved with somebody who is giving just like how I'm giving. Because if both people are giving, then both people are going to be ended up getting. But when you have one person with a taker and the other person who feels that their role must be to give, we're bound to have a lot of problems there. Somebody is going to feel taken advantage of. Is going to feel used. Somebody is going to feel exploited.
Boy, Doc, Marsha Ann says, with these core elements, love, discipline, consistency, example, and authority sound so harmonious and ideal. But when elements are missing, which most of the time they are, because we don't look for the package really, tell us how to handle that. Because now you're in it, you have maybe one or two children, um, persons, and why I had this program is because persons are now choosing to cohabitate. So they are not together. They are living in the same house because they're saying because of the children. And the marriage done long time, the marriage or a relationship done long time. They are living separated in the household, but they're still calling it a union. They're
Yeah.
still calling it a union. So how do you now handle this parenting situation through what is supposed to be an ideal situation, but it's no longer an ideal situation? And when you finish answering that, I want to go back to Annaliesa about when we
Yes.
get into the situation about us not even thinking about what is legally our rights in a marriage, putting our name on stuff because we're so in love, we're afraid to ask,
Yes.
male or female,
True.
we're afraid to ask about money, we're afraid to
Yes.
ask about the house, we're afraid to
Yes.
ask about the bank account and all
Mhm.
these things. So, Doc,
Yes.
you start first and then let us segue into Annaliesa.
One of
Okay.
the things that we have had to recognize is that what is quite often missing is the children observing love between parents, because that's not there. And as you rightly said, they are really co-parenting, they're staying there because of the children. And Jamaicans, in Jamaica, we tend to be children focused. Quite often people are sticking it out because of the children, not because of each other. And so as soon as the children gets older, they usually split up at that point in time. But if they're staying there for the children, they need to try and find out what is it they do to really help to give the children a fighting start. And one of the things that they need to be committed to do is to make sure that they're giving their children time and attention. The children need to have quality time with their parents. They need to have opportunities to be able to talk with their parents, learn from their parents, discuss issues with their parents, build relationship with their parents, bond with their parents. They need to be able to recall good memories with their parents. And so the parents need to make sure that that's happening. They're giving the children time and attention. The other thing that they need to make sure they're doing is they need to make sure they're giving their children some kind of integrity. Integrity is where you don't tell your kids one thing and you do the opposite. You make sure that whatever you are asking of your children to do, that you yourself will be practicing that, because they're going to learn far more from observing you than from what you are telling them. I think parents also need to give their children affirmation. They need to let Abraham Maslow, who is well known for his hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow says that relationships are like bank accounts where you're making deposits and you're making withdrawals. And so a child needs to be able to get affirmation much more than criticisms. For instance, when I was a kid growing up, I used to hear them say, "Stick and stones can break my bones, but words can never harm me." And that's a lie. Words hurt, and they last for a very, very long time.
Absolutely.
And so parents need to be able to affirm their children. They need to give, in fact, Maslow suggests that you give 5 affirmations for every 1 criticism. And if we think of it in terms of account, if we are giving more criticisms than affirmation, you're making more withdrawals than you're making deposits. So that account is going to be bankrupt soon. And so we need to find ways to affirm our children, make them feel lovable, make them feel valuable, make them feel capable. We need to affirm. And so the parents need to get into this habit of giving their children affirmation, positive affirmation.
But Doc, only one. But Doc, there's only one of the 2 in the equation who is attempting, because most time this is where the separation comes in. I'm assuming one person is not an active participant in this union, whether the children are about each other. So how do you navigate that by yourself?
All right. So the problem with that is how each of them would have defined their roles in the marriage. Because a lot of men believe that they are the financial providers and the mothers are the emotional providers. And some persons may have a marriage where that division of labor, so to speak, works for them, whereas in other couples it does not. But I like the term of the affirmations that Dr. Davidson spoke about, because it also builds up in the children security and confidence. And when you have that, it makes them better rounded to deal with the different experiences that they will have.
And it helps them with their self-esteem. Because self-esteem is the evaluation a person makes of their worth, their competence, and their significance. And so if they're being affirmed, they're going to feel positive about themselves. And they're going to end up making better decisions because they have a healthy self-esteem.
And Sandra, coming back to those roles of the father and the mother, whether it is a financial provider and an emotional provider and so on, it does not matter if that is how you start out.
Right.
As you go along and as you develop, things may change, things may need to be altered, but if you are not openly communicating with each other, that will never reach to any positive conclusion. So it is
Yes.
an always changing role that each of the parents have to always be reviewing, questioning, and improving as they go along.
Yeah, but I wanted to at this point interject, Annalisa. When we
Yes.
get into the marriage and we just go willy nilly, should people go willy nilly? What should you when you get into a marriage? Not that you are thinking of a
Yes.
divorce at the end of the road. Let me be very
Can I
clear.
say something here? You remember I
Ye-
made a
Yes.
big thing on premarital counseling.
Yes,
Let me
Yes.
point out that, let me point out something very crucial to get into so that we don't go willy-nilly.
yes.
A lot of research has been done on the difference between men and women. Men and women are different. In fact, for many years I've been saying that, and it wasn't until the book came out, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, that people begin to, unfortunately, we always prefer to get it from foreigners than get it from our own. But
Yes.
men and women are different. And one of the things that we have to help men to do and women to do is to understand their unique needs, the unique needs that they have that they're taking into a marriage, and the unique needs that a man has that he's taking into a marriage. Let me share with you quickly the primary needs. There are 5 primary needs that most women have. They have a need for affection. And by affection, women don't just mean sex. They mean to be made to feel valued, to be made to feel cared for, to be made to feel of worth, to be made to feel significant, to be made to feel important in their partner's life. Then they have a need for conversation. And from a woman's perspective, there are 3 aspects to conversation. First, there's information, where her partner shares with her what's going on in his life. She shares with him what's going on in hers. So he comes home and she said to him, "How was your day?" He said, "All right." She wants to hear more than that. What happened? Nothing. She wants to hear more than that, right? So information, right? So conversation involves information, it involves investigation, and that's more an investigation of her feelings. So she's looking sad, she'd like him to say, "Hey, you're looking sad, what's happening?" And then
But me I don't
thirdly,
mind
it
reader.
involves understanding, right? She wants to be understood. So conversation involves information, investigation of her feelings, and understanding. The third need that she has, which is crucial, is the need for total trust, openness, and honesty. She wants to be able to trust him, and on most occasions, that need is not met. And that creates a tremendous amount of insecurity because that's not a need that's met. The fourth need that she has is the need for financial security and financial support. The need for him to contribute financially because she doesn't have a big son. So she wants him to participate in contributing financially to the family. And the
Mm-hmm.
fifth need she has is the need for him to be a good father to the children. And a good father is not just a provider, it's a person who's also willing to give the children time and attention, to participate with them, to play with them, to help in the housework with them, to make them see that fathers too must be domesticated. And so that's important. The man also has needs, and he has 5 primary needs. The first need
Okay.
he has is the need for sexual fulfillment. And by sexual fulfillment, what men mean is not that their wife obliges them or feels sorry for them or is giving in to them, but that their wife
Yes.
is interested in sex as much as they are, and that she will
Full
even initiate some of
participation.
the time. And what
Yeah,
men will
man. Full
tell you is
participation.
that when their wife initiates, it has the ability to transform a mundane black and white existence into living glorious technicolor. The second
Wow.
need,
No, say that again, Doc. Say that again.
Living.
when a wife initiates, it
Yes.
has the ability to transform a mundane black and white existence into living glorious technicolor. And so if they
Okay.
have a wife who is unwilling to initiate and uninterested, then that
Yeah.
causes that man to go out looking for sex, looking for a good romantic experience. The second need he has is the need for companionship, recreational, social, intellectual. The need for a partner to go places with him, to do things with him, to think through issues with him. The third need he has is the need for her to maintain her attractiveness, because it's a major turnoff for him to come home and see her dragging some old slippers and in some old frock after him just leave some nice, attractive woman. The fourth need, the fourth need he has is the need for her to be a good domestic manager, not a domestic helper. And a good manager delegates, and she must be able to delegate to him and the children. And the fifth and final need that he has is the need for her not to be constantly nagging him, criticizing him, complaining, but rather to be more affirming, to stroke his ego, because whether we recognize it or not, all of us men have fragile egos that needs to be stroked. And if a woman is constantly nagging and complaining and criticizing, then he's going to go to some woman who is telling him he's the best thing since sliced bread, and he is going to find himself spending more time there.
Yes,
So
Doc,
those are some of the very important things we need to understand.
And Doc, I hear you, we hear you loud and clear. But hear what happened now. I was watching I can't remember his name right now, but they were we're talking about male versus man. And the conversation was that a lot of men, what we see as men, are grown males versus man. Dr. Samaj was saying that many of the men don't pass age 17. And this is a reality for many. So what do you do when you find yourself in this situation? Because we are called nagging, right? However, we can't help but nag because there's nothing happening. The only thing you can do is not nag and leave or nag and stay. That's sometimes the only choice you have, because they're not going to go to the counseling. They're not going to go to the counseling. They, in their own heads, believe that they
I don't agree with you now.
Together.
Sandra, suppose I tell you that I have more men coming to me than women.
I would believe
and that's
you.
a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah, but those are the men who have now become aware.
What is their goal in coming to you, Dr. Davidson?
Why do they come?
Yes.
Yes, what is their goal?
They come to me. They want to help me to help their wife.
No, but the problem is with them.
So, and that is it, and that is the problem. So but they don't say anything about
but listen to this. You know what the law of change says? The law of change says I can't change my wife, but I can change myself. And chances are that if I change, my wife will change.
Absolutely.
Right. So all we do is to apply the law of change. So the motivation is to come to help me but the strategy then is to apply the law of change.
Right.
Okay. Over to Annaliesa now. Let us talk about setting up when you are in a relationship, because we know we are in love and all of that. But before you start living the life togetherness, there are certain things that are required. Let us hear some of those things, Annaliesa, please.
All right. So I don't like to look at it that way, because a lot of people think that it is just a checklist and you just go off and you tick them off. But you must be cognizant of actually where you are in life and where the other person is. So if it is that because I grew up in a household where my parents were together for a very long time, I don't think that they have ever had a joint account, but everything worked seamlessly in the house. So again, it is a matter of the two people. It's not necessarily
what their arrangement is.
So you don't have to have a joint account, but you must know what each person's responsibility will always be, right?
That's and this is before the marriage or union or after?
Well, I can't say it's even before the union, because it is a feature of getting into a union with somebody that you have to be aware of what these things are, because you must know what is important for you. Unfortunately, you have a lot of people who get into relationships on a transactional basis, and
Yeah.
finances may be what would have led them there. So that may be at the forefront, and the only question in their mind is whether you can give me X on these intervals for the rest of my life. That's how some people think, right? I am speaking about a healthy situation. A healthy
Right.
situation is knowing what each of your responsibilities would be to the relationship and how it is that you're going to discharge it.
Right.
For example, one of the early divorces that I did was for a young lady who used to give her portion of the rent. They used to share all the expenses, half and half, and she would give her husband half of the rent, for the premises that they were living in. And her husband had a gambling problem that she had no idea about. How she realized that he had this problem was when persons came to evict them out of the premises because the rent was owing for like over a year.
Oh,
So even if it is that you have these responsibilities and this is your contribution to what is happening, you have to also, not because you're checking up on, not because you distrust anybody, but occasionally and intermittently, just ensure that everybody is still on the same page. I went to a retreat several years ago, and the guest speaker at the retreat was Mr. Aubin Hill, and he made a comment once, and he said, "Trust everybody, but check everything." So in your union, you are trusting your partner, but just checking everything to be sure. So that
right.
is where finances are concerned. You have to know what that is. You have to know what your responsibilities are, even in the very household, because some people believe that there are some traditional functions that must be done by the man, carry out the garbage, must be able to be a plumber, an electrician,
Mm,
fix car, whatever it is, and the
mm.
woman now do the other things.
Hands on.
But that does not have to be the case. You may have some men. We know that most executive chefs in the world are men. So men may be the ones who are the primary um, chefs in the house. I didn't want to say cook. Chefs in the
Mm.
house. There are different roles that each of you, in getting to know each other and knowing what each of your strengths are, that will inform how it is that you will then go forward in the relationship. The thing is, again, these things may change over time. You have to be open and honest about anything that is changing. You may be a person who only wants to have sex with right before you go to your bed, and the man that you're with probably is somebody who wants it early in the morning before he goes to work, or wants it anywhere, anytime, anyhow, at any time or place, and that could be either the male or the female. You have
Mhm.
to be able to know that these are the perhaps expectations. Not all of them can be met, but you have to work out a rhythm as to how it is. When I say rhythm now, it don't have to be always the same rote formula, because that can also become boring. So you have to be able to know how it is that you're going to interchange these different and varying things, so that everybody, not just the man, but even the woman, is just as satisfied. Because I listened very carefully to Doc speaking about the 5 things that the men want. And I laughed in my head because all I was thinking about is that the women want those things too.
Mhm.
The women have
Absolutely.
the ego too, and all of those things. So it is a matter of just recognizing where you are at any given time in the relationship and working towards it. Now, there comes a time when everything may fall apart. It may be that both of you are aware of the fact that everything is falling apart. The better communicating relationship that you have, it is easier for you to part on very good grounds, and also knowing what each of you will be doing in the separation, where the children are going to be, who is going to be what, and whatever. And I agree with that. both parents have to ensure that their values are the same, no matter who is living with wherever children. Because if it is that they know that mommy is the very extremely lenient one and daddy is a very strict one, or vice versa, it will cause pushback from the children. But if they realize that even though mommy might be lenient, daddy might be strict, or the other way around, but if they try anything, both of them are going to communicate so that they will not get away with anything.
Right.
The stability in how those children are raised
They
will
have to
be
seem
maintained.
united. They have
You
to seem
have
united.
to maintain it. You have to do it to
Right.
maintain it. The problem is when you have issues, when you have like domestic violence, when you have economic weaponry by whichever one of the parents may be the wealthier of the two, or those are where you have no severe problems that will come up, and it is harder in dealing with children. And I always say in situations like that, the parties must go to counseling, because that is not something for a lawyer to fix. We can tell
Right.
you the strict thing and say, yes, the law says mother and father must maintain child, it must be an equal contribution, it must be XYZ. We can tell you from a very strict black and white position what the law is likely to say if you go to court. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings who have relationships that take place despite of or in spite of the law. And they have
Right.
to be able to maintain those relationships going forward.
Let us, as you say, black and white. Let us just speak a little bit about
You want the black and white?
having black
Okay.
and white in
Yes.
a marriage or a relationship.
A relationship.
How
Yes.
important black and white is.
Yes. All right. So for the couples who are open to it, there can always be situations where parties, having gone through the excellent premarital counseling, may agree to sign prenuptial agreements. Now, although people think that it is in anticipation of a divorce, I don't like to look at it that way. I think of it almost as in anticipation of securing the union. And securing the parties. So it has nothing to do with divorce. It just deals with how this family is going to go on. And the truth is that our law not only allows now for premarital agreements, they allow also for postnuptial agreements. So even if you had an agreement prior to getting married, there is nothing stopping those two parties, because their circumstances may change, because of their outlooks may change, whatever it is. They may come together and say, you know what, all right, that is done. Let us start over. We have a postnuptial agreement. We have children involved. We probably have a child who is physically challenged or disabled, and therefore you have to make other arrangements for that child. Who is going to be the trustee for the child? Who is going to be the primary guardian for this child? If something were to happen to either of us, what should happen to this child or even any of your children? Because once they're minors, they're not going to, nobody can treat with them as adults. So there are certain serious conversations that you can have that you can reduce the right in going forward to protect not only yourself as the husband and wife, but also the children, right? Some people only tend to think of things like that as being in a will, so it only will come in if one of the parties die. But anything can happen. You can be incapacitated for any other reason and still be alive, and you still want to have adequate provisions in place for your children and for yourself. So it is something to think about. When it comes to children, the law is that the general position is that both parents are obligated to maintain their children. Traditionally, I know that a lot of Jamaicans believe that it is the sole responsibility of the father. And I think that there was a time in the law when that was the case, but that is not the case now. Both parents have an obligation to maintain their children.
And
And
it's
so you have a lot
50-50?
of,
Is that
sorry?
in law? Is it 50-50? In law, is it 50-50?
Yeah,
Or
let
is
us
it
say that
based on what is agreed
the
between
general
the both
position
parents? Yes.
The general position is that it is 50-50. However, it does not have to be 50-50,
Right.
because how reality is is that sometimes you do have one of the parents being a higher earner than the other parent. And so it may be that for the benefit of the entire family, what happens is that whoever is the higher earner, because it doesn't always have to be the man, that they take on more of a responsibility when it comes to certain things. They will be the ones who will take out the trust funds for university in the future for argument's sake. Or it may be that one of the person who is earning the most would be more responsible for either the educational expenses or extracurricular expenses and so on. But for the necessities in life, the expectation in the law is that it is 50-50.
Okay. This one is for Doc. How does one parent on the same page in front of the child when clearly parenting styles appear on the same page when clearly one of the parenting styles are different?
I think it's very important. By the way, I really appreciate all that Annaliesa just mentioned, because they're crucial, they're very important for people to know. And it is so important for people to realize that prenuptial is not about divorce.
No.
In fact, prenuptial, quite often, we have encouraged people, let's say a person who has really acquired a lot of assets, getting married to somebody who doesn't have as much. It is very important for them to really do a prenuptial. So
Yes.
I really
But
would like to hear.
Doc? Why, Doc? If you love me and you say you want to marry me, what is yours is mine, what is mine is yours, don't it?
People,
that
life
is
is
not always the
dynamic.
case, because you remember
Life is
that
dynamic.
sometimes men come into a marriage with previous children. They may come
Right.
into a marriage with previous
That's
responsibilities. They may be responsible for certain parents or other siblings that they have. And
Very
so
important point.
these are things, that is why I'm saying it is for the security of the persons, and don't look at it as
Yeah.
divorce. Because when you put your question in the way that you do, Sandra, it may raise the hairs on the back of somebody's neck, because they are thinking, oh, so you're only coming into this thing to say what you can get. You have to be very careful how it is that you have that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so true. Concern the question you asked, Sandra, it is extremely important for parents to realize that their style is different, their opinions are different, but they need to sit together and work out a healthy compromise, because they have to present to the children a united perspective. It's a perspective that they have worked out together. It might be a compromise, but it's a compromise that they have agreed on. And that's what they're going to be using in relating to the children. Because if they don't do that, we're going to have a lot of problems.
So this is something that has to be discussed privately before it comes up in front of the child.
It has to be done privately before.
We have to have an agreement as to how we are going to deal with these issues.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if there happens to be a conflict in front of a child, I would suggest that the parents maintain the united front, and then behind closed doors discuss what the differences would have been, what the conflict would have been.
That's
and
correct.
If it is that there is something to change, then they both communicate that to the child. But don't have the fight in front of the child, because then it will just become a divide and conquer.
Absolutely. Okay. Patricia says United will work with intelligent parents. Bitterness and spite through separation and divorce will never result in a same road, same path process. What do you have to say about that?
And that's true. And sometimes, that is so true. And that's the reason why we have to find a way for counselor to meet with these parents, to make them understand that they both claim to love their children, and they claim to both want the best for the children. So let us all agree as to what will be the best for the children. Let us make a commitment to give the children what will benefit them, what will be the best, what will help them. And it's a very hard sometimes to be able to work that through with parents, because they have so many issues that they're still wanting you to referee. And you have to remind them that you're not a referee. You're here to find a way to provide for the best interests of the children. And sometimes it is really hard work, but we have to stick to that.
Mhm.
But
Another thing I recommend in that situation as well is sometimes, where possible, I ask them to take a little cooling off period. Take a week, take 2 weeks, because what happens is that when everything is raw and recent, the emotions are much higher. And so it is harder for you to come with an objective standpoint, and somebody will accept it readily. So sometimes you have to give them a little time to ride out what their emotions are. Get over the fact that this young girl come and take over. Get over the fact that this young boy come and take over, whatever the situation is, or the fact that you are really just surprised at the fact that so and so wants to move on. Because there are some persons who I know of, a couple, a wife came to me extremely distressed, having woken up with her husband in the morning, and by the time he left, a process server was at the door to serve her with divorce papers. So I mean, it came from absolute left field where she was concerned. So when things like this happen, it is very hard in that moment to start speaking about a black and white, to start thinking about rational decisions, because the initial response to something like that is revenge. How can I get back at the person? How can I hurt the other person? And where children are concerned, you cannot foster that situation. So sometimes I say, you know what? There is time. Come back in 2 weeks' time, come back in 3 weeks' time, and we have a further discussion, because when the emotions are raw, there is no rationalizing going to be taking place. None.
Yes. Let us, as you say that, from a place of hurt.
Yes.
Whether male or female, they tend to, and both of you can give your views on this. They tend to weaponize the children.
They weaponize the children, they weaponize finances, they weaponize whose house, they weaponize the car, they weaponize anything at all. They weaponize the friends, they weaponize the parents. Anything that they think they can use to their advantage, they will weaponize.
And what can an individual do because life continues, whether the weaponizing is going on, yes or no, the child still have to go to school, still have to eat, still have to wear clothes, still has a need from mommy and daddy. How can the other person, and it can be from a legal standpoint and a psychological standpoint, one of the things that the person can stand on? What ground the other person can stand on?
We have to do our best to help these folks to come to a place where they can forgive. But we have to be able to. We have to be able to. We have to be able to help them first. No, first of all, we need to let them know what forgiveness is not.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Forgiveness is not tolerance.
Okay.
Forgiveness is not excuse. Forgiveness is not trust. So not because I forgive you means that I trust you. In fact, the forgiveness is really the person who has been hurt, who feel they have been hurt. They're the one who need to forgive. Trust is not in their hands at all.
Yes, but Doc, in a situation like
the person who has hurt you.
Yes, Doc. But in a situation like Annaliesa was speaking about a while ago, the gentleman just come out of your bed, sir, and by evening you're a divorcee or a potential divorcee. How do you get how do you even get up out of the bed? Moreover,
Right.
to
The
forgive
truth is,
so that life
the
can
truth
continue.
the truth is that forgiveness has stages. Forgiveness is not a one-shot thing. It has stages. The first stage of forgiveness is to accept and admit how painful it is for you. The fact that you are mad like hell. You have to deal with that. You have to hug up your hurt. You have to acknowledge your hurt. You have to acknowledge how angry you are. And so forgiveness has to start there, where you are crazy, you're mad like crazy, you're hurt, and you're not gonna pretend that everything is fine. It's not fine. So you have to start there. So you have to go through the process of about 5 to 6 stages that is involved in forgiveness. And until you reach to that sixth stage, that's when you can begin to truly be able to say, okay, I feel I can now forgive. So you have to be able to ventilate. You have to be able to talk about what you'd like to do to the person. You'd have to be able to really spill express you'd like to be revengeful, and somebody has to help you to work through all of that.
Yes,
But
but
you
that
are
what I'm
really and
saying.
truly
So
not
And
Sandra,
going
if
to
I,
the
experience.
point that I'm making, Annalisa,
no,
is
if I
that
can come in,
while
I can
we're
say
going
to
through
you,
all of that,
yes, no
life
man,
is continuing
no,
at the
I
same
agree with
time.
you. So
Yes.
this is what I do. When I am faced with a client who is going through an extremely emotional episode and things need to be done, I zero in on the things that will get them to calm down. Your children get you to calm down. You
Okay.
need to make decisions in relation to your children. What is the best case scenario, worst case scenario, mid case scenario in relation to your children? Because when you focus on the things that are important to them individually, you can get past the hurt, or you can push through the hurt to get to some solutions. So children are very important. They're important to both parents. It's not just a mother thing, because you have a lot of mothers who believe that is my children, is not the father's children, is my children. So you push past that, get to the children. Sometimes there are assets that are involved. There might be a car, there might be a house, or so on, and there are loans attached to these assets. Again, your credit is important to you. Notwithstanding that you may be going through a separation or a divorce, your credit is still of value. So you push past all of the hurt and the this and the that and making guan and whatever, and you get to the point. Do you want to lose this house? Do you want the bank to sell the house? So are you so upset at this man that you're going to make nobody at all have any house to live in? Those are the things that you have to zero in on to focus their mind on getting through each day when you make these decisions. Is it a situation where there's one car, two cars, four cars? All you need is one, right? Whoever is in front of me, whether it's man or woman, all you need is one vehicle. So it does not matter if there's a fleet of 10 vehicles and you want to vex and you don't want this girl or this boy jumping on your car because you did buy the car and so on. No, all you need right now, focus on right now, is one vehicle. And so you force them to deal with the day-to-day decisions that they have to make. Is it back to school time? You need to buy back to school books. You need to get uniform, shoes, whatever it is. Focus the mind on the things that are now, coming up now to be dealt with. Because when they start to do those things and they have to focus on it, they forget about what Jimmy was doing or what Sarah was doing over there. They are now focused on a prize to move. And eventually, because I can't deal with the emotional side, when I realize that the emotions are too high or too involved, that it does not appear as if the person can get over it, I always say, please find a proper counselor, go and get counseling, because I only studied the law thing. I never studied the psychiatry thing. So I can help you that way, but I realize that you might have an issue. But let us now deal with the things that I can deal with. A lot of clients don't like it because they say that I'm cold and I'm this and so on. But you have to be able to push past it. Number two,
Focus.
as an attorney, you cannot take on the emotions of every client that comes in your office, because if
Right.
that happened, I would be a stark staring mad woman. I'd be a wreck. So I can't take on those emotions. I have to be able to push past the emotions now and let us deal with the black and white of what it is that you have to deal with. Are you in a position to save this house? If you're not in a position to save this house, are you in a position to say, okay, find somewhere else to go to? Do you want that because you're not going to have anywhere to live? Nobody must have anywhere to live, which would include your children. These things help to focus people's mind.
Annalise, let me try and work through, because the truth is we have to be holistic, eh?
Try to
as
be.
I listen to you, here's where I'm hearing you're going, and I'm with you.
Yes.
You are listening to their complaint. You're helping them gain practical insights.
Yes.
Right? A therapist like me is also trying to help them to gain some emotional insights. But you're helping them to gain practical insights, and then you're developing for them a plan of action.
Yes.
But the way the psyche works, it begins with the mind, and so you are getting their mind focused on what is practical. The mind impacts our behavior, and you're getting them doing things behaviorally that is going to be dealing with practical stuff. The behavior impacts the feelings. And so you end up feeling the way you feel by what you do. But what you do is influenced by how you think. And so you're going there with them. However, they have done something and somebody comes and say, "You're stupid. Imagine you do all of that and you make it." So the whole thing starts all over again. And so we have to find a way to work together, understanding how the psyche works. It's the mind, the behavior, then the feelings. And so we have to be working very closely together.
And then there's the other aspect. There's the other aspect that sometimes when it's the woman that's leaving, you hear she have man.
Yes.
Even when she don't have no man.
Yeah.
And so the man drop him hand, him now pay $1, make a new man mind you. And the penny them.
Yeah.
Where does she go from there, Annaliesa?
Well, it depends on what her position is. So I want to just rally back on something that Doc said a while ago, because I agree with him about the conditioning of the mind and so, but I want to just put in another plug. So if you had a prenup or you had a postnup, a lot of the day-to-day decisions that you would need to make in relation to what to do with what you have would have already been made. So it is just a matter of implementing it. But
Can
when
I
it
ask you
is
something? Young people make the same prenup as older marriages, or this is for people with stuff. If you're starting out with nothing, you still have a prenup?
Well, I don't know what you'd be protecting or securing in a prenup if you're both starting out with nothing, and that is why I said you can have both a prenup or a postnup, because after you have gotten into the marriage and you start to
I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
Yes. Continue.
No, if there is no such thing and there is no preconceived idea as to where anybody is going to go and so on. The problem is, Sandra, we have to be honest with where we are individually. Yes. And there are a lot of times where a man will be very upset about, and even if they are the ones to leave first, the fact that you as a woman decide to say, okay, fine, you leaving, let me brush off my nice little dandy clothes and put on my nice, sweet, hot, Fenty makeup, and I'm going to go on the road. I'm going to meet my friends. It has nothing to do with another man, but she now needs to even do this as an act of trying to come back to her, come back to herself. And what you'll find is that the man will say, look here, if I can't have you, not na road going to have you neither, not your friend them, not your family, nobody. And so it may be a dangerous situation, and that is for a man or a woman. And my advice to persons like that is to seek protection. We have different protection orders that persons can go to the court and get. And it is something that you need to have in your mind. A lot of women, and this is really for the women, a lot of women will say, Lord is them father, and I don't want them to have no negative feeling about their father and so on. The thing is, a lot of that kind of reaction is what leads to increased and more violence and more stalking and more harassment. And that also is not healthy for the children. It's not healthy for you, the individual woman in the relationship, and it is not healthy for the children. So you have to make these hard decisions as much as you may not want to, because it may be that every person that you turn to for help with this man, for example, it just filters into nothing. Or he will attend 2 and 3 times, he will tell the person, okay, I'm fine, and so on. And then the next thing you know, he just goes to the house and shoots up the whole place or shoots up the woman or whatever it is. You have to be able to make the very hard decision as to whether you are going to be protecting yourself. And when you protect yourself and you are protecting your children, they also get the added confidence and security from that, because they also don't want a mother who is just going to allow them to be the victim of any form of violence as well.
Right.
So it is something for you to make a very hard decision about. And a lot of men will weaponize the fact that they are the financial stronger partner. And so all of a sudden, before when you're together, you go to Paris every other weekend, you go to the Philippines when you want to, you go to what's the place? Bali? Where is it that
Bali.
everybody, yes,
No,
that everybody likes to go.
yeah, it's not Bali.
Yes,
It's
Thailand
I
or
know what you're
wherever it is.
talking.
Yes, ma'am. The Maldives or
God.
somewhere like
No,
that.
yes,
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 yes.
ma'am. And you go to the place in Greece that everybody wants to go to. Santorini,
Satarina.
yes, ma'am. Yes. And everybody is happy about that. But as soon as you decide to leave, you are like, this woman is only worthy to stock some little dry crackers in the house and whatever it is. That is also a feature of the immediate emotions in a situation. And again, over time, that may change. It may not be as luxurious as it is before, but you will be in a more comfortable position eventually, hopefully, right? But you have to plan. Now, I don't think that a woman must always be, or a man must always be financially dependent on the other party. Or let me put it that way. One partner should never be completely financially dependent on the other partner.
But suppose she's a
Never.
stay-at-home mom, or he's a stay-at-home dad.
That does not make you financially dependent. It makes you the stay-at-home parent. It does not mean that you cannot have access to your own bank account. You cannot have access to your own asset or whatever it is. It does not mean that.
So in that situation, you're saying that there should be some financial, uh, let's say I'm the
Provision.
wife. So let's
Yes.
say I'm the wife and I'm a stay-at-home mom. I should be getting an allowance monthly.
I don't like to call it allowance, Funds, some provision of money should be put in some account for which you have control over, whether it is for household expenses, family expenses, however you want to phrase it. I don't like the allowance thing, because allowance
Right.
is like what you give to your
Yeah,
child because they are conducting their
absolutely.
chores in the house. I don't like it that way, because as a wife, it's not chores you're doing, right?
Right.
Some housewives will tell you that their job is just as serious and important as any outside job that any wife may have. So I don't like to phrase it that way, because it speaks to a level of subservience that I don't think should exist in a marriage. You should have equality in a marriage.
Right. Doc, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
want to weigh in on that?
I'm in total agreement with what is being said by Annaliesa. I think she's really been very clear in terms of the way forward, because one of the things that we have recognized is that, as you know, we've had a lot of murder-suicide in Jamaica. We've had a lot of people who have been beaten up, abused physically, and so on. And what is interesting to get into the psyche of some of these men, who it's mostly men who do these things. Usually, after a man has abused a woman or killed a woman, there are three responses that he has. One, he either become very sorry for himself that he didn't mean to do it, and he's crying and and he's all in kind of tears, or he tries to justify his action, and so he gets the finest of lawyers, and he keeps saying, she's the reason why this happened. It wouldn't have happened if she had just shut her mouth, or if she didn't do this, or if she didn't do that. Or he might take a self-destructive path. And that self-destructive path is when we get the murder-suicide. And so he's either remorseful, he tries to justify his action, or he becomes self-destructive. And so it is extremely important for us to try and understand the kind of male that we're dealing with when we have these difficulties in relationships. Is this the person who is likely to be self-destructive? And usually there can be a little hint, because of things that this person might have said or usually say, or the way this person behaves, or there can be a hint whether it's going to take a justification, justify his action. Again, he's always blaming. It's never his fault. Or the remorseful guy has gone through this cycle all over again. It's just that this is now the worst, because he has cried before, he has promised never to do it again. And so the person who is remorseful tends to function in what we call the violent cycle. And so it's very important to really know who we are dealing with these kinds of individuals, because that can kind of help you to know that you have to be very careful and seek help from the security forces.
We have spoken about psychological counseling for the parents, but what about the children going through the separation?
Absolutely.
The children need a lot of that.
Yes.
And
because
at Family Life Ministries, we work with everybody, children, family. Family Life Ministries. I'll just say this: we run the largest counseling center in the Caribbean. We have 50 psychologists on our staff, and
wow.
we have people all over Jamaica.
You're saying something, Annaliesa?
No, I say it's very important for the children to be part of that counseling, because yes, the parents may have gone through their own destructive relationship, for want of a better phrase, and may need to navigate out of that. But at the end of the day, children are like sponges, and sometimes they do not immediately react to what is happening, but they are internalizing a lot of what they have seen, a lot of what they have experienced in this destructive relationship. And so it is very good if they also have their own outlet to release and mend while
and it's important for guidance counselors to be aware that children who are acting out at school quite often is a result of some things going on in the family.
Agreed.
Okay, before we wrap up, what I want to ask both of you, I know it can't ever be very clean, but I want to ask you two things. This common phenomenon of living together in a household separated, in the interest of the children, is that something to do, or is it cleaner or better or more healthier to separate before it gets to a very bad stage, separate cleanly and agree to co-parent in a particular way? I know sometimes persons don't leave also because they can't afford to have another household to pay for another rent or mortgage or car or whatever. So you try financially to cope. But in your estimation, in your experience, Annaliesa first and then Doc, what would you say is the best arrangement? I know it is a general, I'm speaking generally because all situations are different. But
Different,
let's
yes,
say you had an ideal world then.
yes.
Ideally, for the mental and emotional and financial, what would you say in your experience? Because you have a lot of experience. You see how
All
how best
right.
work out.
All right. So that is a hard question. However, what I found is that it depends on the parties who are involved and the circumstances, which will dictate what is really best. Now, when it is that you have a couple that is very mature about how it is that they're going to go about their separation, there may be hurt feelings, yes, but they're both at a stage where they can deal with it and understand that either from an economic financial point of view, the parties can't be separated in terms of households yet.
Right.
You have persons who have just moved out of one person will stay in the master bedroom for want of a better phrase, and another the other parent will move to a different bedroom. And this is after there is some communication, open, honest communication with the children as well. And everybody still has their particular roles where the household is concerned. However, the mother and father are not living together as a couple, but everybody can
And that
co
this is supposed to be
cohabit.
told to the children.
They would have to, because
So that when mommy and daddy
remember,
live in separate lives,
exactly,
it's not
it is
so
very
confusing.
important. No, man, it is very important. If you remember when Doc started, he said about children needing not only to get love from their parents, but to see their parents loving each other. And so, if they're used to the parents loving each other in one room, it is going to cause some discord if they are moving to two separate rooms. So, open communication where they realize that even in that, the love for them is in no way affected, and the parents are at such a point where they can communicate with respect, so
Right.
that at least that level of love, for want of a better phrase, is still there between them, so that the family can then continue until there is full separation then. And you have some parties who are able to do that. I acted for a father who, it was about 2 years after the parents had actually officially separated before he actually came out of the matrimonial home. But the children had to get used to the fact that mommy and daddy were no longer together. But they both wanted to be so involved in the day to day lives of those children that it suited them and their family at the time to be in the same place, right?
Okay.
And even after the father moved out, what he would do was, before they woke up in the morning, he was at the house. So they still saw him for breakfast. And he was there until both of them fell asleep in the night. And then he would go to wherever it is that he was living at the time. So that the disruption to their life was a seamless change in how they worked it out. There are some people, because of the relationship, that is impossible. So somebody has to move. And usually, the person who is more financially capable would be the one who moves, because then you have a whole other household now that will need to be funded.
Is the one who is normally financially stable get the children as well, or not necessarily?
That's no, there's no hard and fast rule where that is concerned. I mean, you may find what persons may generally tell you is that is the mother going to get the children. So, and I think more times than not, that is the situation. However, there are situations where the father is the one who is given custody, care, and control of the children, and the mother has reasonable access to the children. So it doesn't have to always be the mother who has care and control of the children, and it does not have to be the mother. It does not have to be the father, because he is the one who is more financially capable, because at the same time he can move and he can continue to maintain where the children and the mother will remain.
All right. So one quick question before I go over to Doc,
Mhm.
from you, Annalisa, because we're in Jamaica, we see a lot of single mothers. Yes, there are single fathers also, but the majority are single mothers.
Yes.
that have no help at all. I'm trying to find out the teeth of the law in Jamaica.
Sandra, let me tell you something. That is it can be a two-edged sword. Some of these mothers know why they are not going after the fathers. Some of these mothers have decided that they, although they had met a knight in shining armor, after they were impregnated, they realized that the knight in shining armor is not as shiny as he first appeared. And there are some men who are also dedicated to the fact of going around and planting their seed and bragging to their friends as to how many children they have with absolutely no intention of minding those children. It sounds bad, but there are some men who are just like that. Um, some women may go after them. Some women will get some help as a result of doing that. And some of the women just decide that they can't bother. And we need to reach a stage where, I mean, I am for the proposed changes in the legislation that said that a father's name must be on a birth certificate. I'm for that. I am also for the fact that both parents must contribute towards the upbringing of their children. Contribution does not always have to be financial, because a parent's love and a parent's time, I think, are the most important currencies that a child can get from their parent. Because you can be a trillionaire father, a trillionaire mother, and spend absolutely no time with your children, and they will not have any regard for you.
Thank you. Over to you, Doc.
Yeah, I really like what Annaliesa just said, because we have a lot of successful failures in Jamaica. People who are successful in their careers.
Save
We have
that
a lot of
again, Doc.
successful failures. People are successful in their careers, successful in their profession, but total failure as parents, not able to, not given time and attention and being there for their kids, bonding. The ideal situation really is if we could have although the parents have, their relationship doesn't exist, if they could still be there. But that is so hard to pull off. When we can pull it off, we try. But because it is far better to have them away from each other than to have them constantly having conflict in front of the children. But if we can have them together without the conflicts and allow the children to enjoy the value that they get from a father and a mother at the same time, and we can pull it off, we try to do it.
Thank you so much. Is there anything before we close? Is there anything that you would like to say to our viewers? Any advice, any last nuggets for them to really go through this period? I mean, it's difficult, but as best as possible from both of you. Your last pieces of advice, please. Start with you, Annaliesa.
Okay, I will end where I started, which is the open and honest communication. I think it is always very good. If you're honest with yourself, even about the hurt that you're going through, man or woman, it will help you to navigate a separation and a divorce much easier. Open and honest communication, not only with yourself and your partner, but also with the children, because their reality as they know it as children, your reality as a parent will change, and you have to face it head on. It is not going away. You have to deal with it. Open and honest communication is also good. Not becoming a slave to your emotion while you're going through this change is also very important, because at the end of the day, hard decisions will remain to be made for your children, for yourself, even your partner, because you now have different decisions to make. Who is going to live where? Who is going to get what? How is it the children will be financed? How it is the children will be cared for? And who will have the primary care for these children? These are very important questions that if it is that you become a slave to your emotion, it is harder to make them, and it is harder to be clear in them. And so open and honest communication and not becoming a slave to your emotions. Those would be my two takeaways.
Okay, and my two nuggets from you is to be careful with the choices when you're selecting a
Ooh,
partner.
yes. Oh, yes.
That's my biggest one from you. And the next one is that the law is there, but you
Yes.
have to participate in
Yes.
order for it to work for you. It's not going to just
Absolutely.
work on its own. You
And there are
have to
many,
be
there are
active.
many people who practice in this area who are there to help.
Right. Can you tell us where to find you?
Lindsay Law Chambers. Sure. Lindsay Law Chambers. I'm at 21 Seaview Avenue, Kingston 6. It is the same road that the time. Yes. 876 613 8484 or 876 649 5631.
Thank you so much, Annaliesa. Doc, over to you for your final nuggets and where we
I would
can
like
find
to
you and all
say, if you're seriously thinking about marriage, please try and make sure you get premarital counseling, because it's always important to remember that being the right person is far more important than finding the right person. So be the
Absolutely.
right person in order to help you find the right person. Also, it's very important for parents to be able to give their children relationships other than themselves, where they will have uncles and aunties that they can always talk to if they're having challenges with their own parents. Allow your children to have people in their lives who are respectful, who are not going to harm them, who you value, who has the right kind of character that you would want to impart on your children, so that your children will feel that there's a village that is raising them and not just you, because it really takes a village to really raise a child. So give your children uncles and aunties. They might not be related to you by blood, but they are people who will be there to assist your children, assist you in raising your kids, especially if you're a single parent.
Okay. And what
Absolutely.
my biggest takeaway from you, what was that saying again about we have successful failures? What
Yes.
was that saying again?
We have a lot of
Yeah,
successful
Yes,
failures.
that was successful failures. That was my
I
we have a
biggest
lot of
takeaway.
successful failures, people who are very good in their careers and their profession, but have not really been good in relationships, neither as
Absolutely.
husband, wife, or parents. So we need to
Exactly.
work hard to make sure we are not successful failures.
And my
Yes.
next nugget from you was working on self first before you take on anyone, before you
Yep.
start taking care of the children. You have to become who you want to be with. That's all? Right,
Be
Doc?
the right person. Be the right person before you try to find the right person.
Love it.
Absolutely. And with
Love
that,
it.
where can we find you, Doc?
I'm at Family Life Ministries, 1 Cecilia Avenue, uh, in
Contact
just
number?
across from St. Andrew High School.
Mhm.
And you
Contact
can
number?
get 876-927-5876. 876-927-5876.
And with that, Facebook fans, YouTubers, this, I mean, I'm speechless. It's the least I've spoken in any of these forums. Once again, I apologize for the late start. And, this has been so rich. We may
Yes.
have to invite them back for other areas, because they have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience. Both are passionate about what they do, and it is really an area that persons don't really talk about, because in divorce and separation there's always shame and people
Amen.
blame themselves and all of that. But there is help.
Yes.
There is Annaliesa Lindsay, right, from Lindsay Law Chambers, and there's Dr. Barry Davidson from Family Life Ministries, and many other places, and many other lawyers. All you have to do, people, is really research. The thing about it is to focus on the healthy minds of the children. Make the children your primary focus. You have brought them into this world. They did not bring themselves in this world. So you have to take yourself out of it, right? Work on yourself behind the scenes, and with the children, make the children a priority. Once again, thank you for joining Boss Lady Live. Thank you, Attorney at Law, Annaliesa Lindsay, and my friend, and Dr. Barry Davidson, my friend, and psychologist, and author. Remind us of the book, Doc, so we can
The book
Questions parents ask.
answers questions parents ask.
Yes.
Yes,
Answers to questions parents ask. I love it.
Answers to questions parents ask.
because that's
Doc,
very,
Doc, it
a
was
very
a pleasure. I
difficult subject.
learned so much from you today.
You heard that, Doc?
Yeah, yes.
I said,
In fact,
I said, it was a
I just
pleasure. I learned so-
I
Go
just said
ahead.
to myself, I need to get your card because we need to work together.
Now you have
Yes,
the contact.
yes,
So
no
you
problem.
can collab. Because
All
really
right.
and truly, it's a balance. And that's why,
Yes.
Doc, when I invited you first, when I sat down and I thought about it, I said, no, I don't want to just have the psychological aspect of it. I want it's a holistic approach, because
Yeah.
Boss Lady Live, our intention is to increase happiness in the lives of our Jamaican citizens and our friends on Facebook and YouTubers, because it's one life. Well, I only know about one life, so it's about improving self, improving your lives, creating a happy life. And so we want to discuss the tough topics sensibly and with the experience, and do things to change going forward, so that we can have a whole individuals, whole children coming up, try to reduce crime and violence, because that is all a part of the whole parenting package. And so I am
Definitely.
eternally grateful to you both. I'm really, really thankful that you spent this time with us, giving us all these nuggets of advice. It's really, really, truly appreciated and very needed. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for allowing me to meet this wonderful lawyer.
Well, I only bring the best on Boss Lady Live.
Look here, I feel very learned and blessed as a result of today. I learned a lot, and I am truly grateful.
Awesome. And it's for all of us to learn and for all of us to grow. And that's where we take our leave tonight. Thank you so much. Do you believe we spent almost 2 hours? Because the
I realize that.
so rich. The topic was so rich.
I send in you my invoice.
and I'm glad to pay it.
God bless you both.
Friends. Good night, Doc.
Bye-bye.
See you all next week. Next week we
Okay.
have our friend Mr. Davis, and next week we're going to be talking about choosing deliberately and wisely. Would you go to a relationship expert, a relationship counselor, to choose a partner, rather than leaving it to ourselves to choose a partner? Let's discuss it. So next week, join me again at 8 p.m. sharp. I won't be falling asleep again. Next week, 8 p.m. Monday, same time, same place. See you. Good night. Have a good evening.
God bless you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.